Hey guys, it's the Nerdy Movie Guy. So we're finally going to review the season 3 finale of Star Wars The Bad Batch. Now this show has gone in so many different directions between the first two seasons. There's so many different characters brought to the show, some new characters, some familiar faces, and the show has really just pulled in my emotions left and right because I didn't know how to feel about certain characters in season 1, I didn't know how to feel about the stories in season 2. I was just nervous through Crosshair's basically entire journey. And now season 3 has just turned everything that season 1 and 2 had up a notch. And everything's just better. It's more intense, it's more emotional, it's more nail biting. It's just everything about season 3 exceeded all expectations. So that was the coolest part about season 3. It's just every single episode, every character introduction, every character's return was just satisfactory. I was blown away by it the entire time. So now we've arrived at this finale. And we're already worried from the beginning because as we've seen in the last episode, Wrecker is already hurt from the beginning. So that's already making us nervous from the start. Is Wrecker's not really 100% right now. He's stronger, so he's going to be more effective and have more strength than probably Hunter and Crosshair. Probably for now. But him being weakened at all just worries us. And as we get closer to these three clones, Wrecker, Crosshair, and Hunter, infiltrating Tantus, Crosshair wants to go off on his own. He wants to pull a tech. He just wants to go, do his thing, because he says that Omega needs Hunter and Wrecker. He doesn't think that she even needs him, or wants him, or even thinks about him, and it's just not true. And Hunter and Wrecker know that. They don't let Crosshair go off without them, which was the coolest thing, because this whole season I just knew they were going to kill Crosshair because I thought he was too cool to stick around. I didn't expect him to get a happy ending. So as far as this moment in the finale, he now has a team backing him up going into Mount Tantus. And Omega's also, she has a mission of her own. And it's almost cool to see the dynamic change between all of these clone characters because Hunter and Wrecker and Crosshair are all invading Mount Tantus to break her out while she has a plan of her own. And their plans, both their strategies they both have hiccups, they both sort of go the way they wanted it to. So there's really two sides to the finale between the clones and then Omega getting the kids out of there. And there's just those little things, like Omega telling one of the children about Wrecker and his fear of heights. She's just becoming more of a grown character, grown up, grown with her storytelling, grown with her maturity. Everything about her is just progressing to this really respectable, admirable character, which kind of came out of nowhere because if you look at Omega from season 1, she's just, I hate to say it, she was just an annoying character. That's just how it was. And she was nowhere near a hateable character for me. She was just annoying, just simply put. Now, she's one of those characters we're just constantly rooting for, which is awesome. It's cool to see that kind of character development. We've seen it through all around Star Wars. We've seen, take the original trilogy. Luke's just a farm boy. He doesn't really know anything about the Force. And now we get to Return of the Jedi. He's just this badass character. Take the prequels. People said what they want about the prequels. Look at Clone Wars. And then Kenobi and Tales of the Jedi. And there's just so many outlets of Star Wars after the prequels that just give this maturity and character growth to all these characters, that those stories were already there, but the other media outlets just sort of propelled it all. And I think that's the same thing that's happening with The Bad Batch, except it's happening within its own show. The thing with Omega and with Crosshair and with Wrecker is these characters didn't need another show or project to make us like them even more. That happened all within their own show. So that's the coolest part about this series as far as this storytelling goes for me. So obviously Omega has her plan with the Zilla Beast. She's going to unleash it. And I've seen some people online are comparing it to sort of this Godzilla style breakout with the Zilla Beast, and there are some eerie shots with it. And the Zilla Beast is treated more like a monster in this episode than some of the other creatures the Bad Batch series has had in the past. So it is cool to see, because this is a story that started in Clone Wars, and season 2, I believe, would have been 2009. So the whole story, cloning the Zilla Beast, this has been 15 years. Clone Wars fans have been waiting to see this story come to completion. And the way this finale left off, I don't know if it's really done yet. So that's cool too. So as these clones have entered the base, Hemlock sort of has these, we don't know what they are, these experiments from the vault. And these experiments, we don't know if they're clones, creatures, where they come from. They're all masked, and they all have their own sort of weapons and their own style to fighting. Because they stay masked the whole time, we don't know where these guys come from. So we can just assume that Hemlock has had experience, sort of testing on maybe Jedi, probably a Django jumper, possibly. He's had access to clone troopers. So there's just really no telling the full catalog of characters or species that he's had to experiment on. So we just don't get enough of backstory with these characters. We just know these new characters are here to fight the Bad Batch, and that's exactly what they do. And they actually beat them and take Wrecker and Hunter and Crosshair to lockup. And the thing with this is everything just becomes more and more intensified, and it worries us fans because Wrecker's already hurt. Now he's hurt worse. Hunter has been beat essentially one of the first times we've seen him. And then Crosshair actually loses his arm. Or his hand, I mean. He loses his shooting hand. And it's just sad to see. But it also sort of is symbolic in a way, which I'll come back to. So, in this finale, now these three characters, are now Hemlock's prisoners. And by this point, as we get closer to them trying to make their move to break out, Omega has already met up with Echo. The kids are now off with Emery. So Emery's character has come full circle, finally doing something right, helping the kids, and she actually takes them out of there. So they don't have to worry about Tantus, clone troopers, or stormtroopers, or Hemlock's experiments, or anything like that. So it's cool to see. And Omega and Echo actually break out the other clone troopers at last. And the Cavalry has arrived is the title for this finale. And people are speculating that's the Bad Batch meeting up to, save Omega. I think it could also be interpreted as Echo, Omega, and the clones. Because remember, Omega's not enhanced. So, to the Bad Batch's standards, she is a reg. And I think the whole point of the Bad Batch in the first place is they didn't really mature much in their first episodes in Clone Wars. They thought they were better than the regs. They didn't need any of the regs. They didn't want any of the regs. And now that the regs are the ones saving them, I think it's just sort of symbolic, sort of teaches them some humility. And it just shows character growth between the regs and the Bad Batch. Also, just sort of accepting each other as one big team for this breakout of Tantus. So that's really, really cool to see. And when the Bad Batch does break out, it's really a neat scene to me because it's almost shot to where it's really eerie. The way they shoot Crosshair and Hunter and Wrecker attacking the guards and experiments when they do get out of their cells, it's treated as if they've been there for a very, very, very long time. And they just go, they go all out attacking the experiments and the stormtroopers. They're not called stormtroopers yet. They just sort of go all out. And it's just really satisfying fight scene we see with these three Bad Batch members fighting everyone around them, basically. And we see the regs fighting too, and Echo's there. And all these characters, this is sort of the point of the breakout, is to get them out of there. And at this point in the finale, we have the side story of, as everyone's getting ready to leave, it was Nala Se. Nala Se and Hemlock both meet up, where the records are being kept for the experiments that Hemlock's been doing there, with all the blood samples. And Nala Se is ready to just destroy it. She doesn't want the Empire to have it. And Hemlock kind of wants to use that as a bargaining chip which, in full honesty, even if he did take this information and he left with it, even if he tried to trade it, he probably would have just been killed. But it is interesting to see that characters like him, they just have their slimy ways and they don't ever change. And past couple of episodes, we've been trying to determine if Hemlock was going to be the Bad Batch's version of Callus from Rebels. He just didn't take that route. His story didn't go that way. And so Nala Se actually gets to kill him after she's killed by Hemlock because her grenade activates and drops. And it's sort of symbolic. She goes out with a bang because, you know, she's the one that ultimately, she was pivotal to Five's death. And her character arc has been some good and bad. But ultimately, it's not about what she's done or hasn't. It ultimately ends with Kaminoans finally getting their justice, not letting the Empire have their technology and their research and their secrets. So Hemlock and Nala Se both die with the information. So it was kind of cool. It was symbolic, and it was a fitting end for both of those characters. And as we come to the most climactic part, the most intense part of this finale, is as Hemlock's trying to get away with Omega. Hunter and Crosshair meet up on the bridge. It's raining, it's dark, it's thematic, it's intense, and they ultimately shoot Scorch and he falls off the platform. Now, one thing you guys can look up for yourself, I have seen some images, and I don't know how credible these images are, so I'm not going to take credit for it at all. But people are saying that if you zoom in on some of the final shots of the episode, there's a model that looks like Scorch that can be seen after his supposed death. So I don't know if that was intentional for the keen eye to take notice, or if it was just editing mistake and they're just meant to be Republic Commandos, but the model was used so they look like Scorches. So I don't know. I don't know if he's supposed to have survived or not. I think there's definitely potential for him to return. I know his armor should help with the fall. I know, they probably want to think he's dead. But if we look at characters like Darth Maul and Echo, Ventress, Boba Fett, we've had these characters return from Star Wars before, so I wouldn't be shocked at all if Scorch comes back. I think it's sad to see for now, because I think he's going to be set aside for a couple projects, but I wouldn't be surprised if he shows up later, so I wouldn't count him out just yet. So back to this climactic part in the finale. After Scorch ultimately falls, it's cool because Crosshair doesn't have his arm, or his hand, I mean. So he has to use, he can't use a sniper. So he has to rely on his senses and his strengths and his instincts to take the shot that he needs in this moment. And so does Hunter. So Omega is able to sort of stagger Hemlock to the point where the cuffs can be shot and she can survive while Hemlock dies. And we finally get to see her just sort of embrace Hunter and Crosshair, finally saving her from Tantus again. Crosshair has done this twice now, and it's just the moment that we didn't know if it was going to happen or not, so it's really cool to see. Also, we do ultimately see Wrecker does survive his fights with experiments. It left us sort of questioning whether he would survive or not, as same with Echo for a moment there. But ultimately, sort of the final scenes of the episode does show on Pabu that Hunter, Crosshair, Wrecker, and Omega are there, safe from the Empire at last. We also get some of our final shots of Tarkin showing up, redistributing all Imperial's funding from Tantus to Project Stardust, as we know, ends up being the Death Star. So he sort of takes control of this whole operation. And we don't know if it's behind Palpatine's back. We don't know if... I don't even think Tarkin really understood the Project Necromancer's importance to Palpatine. I think he just sees Hemlock as a failure and the project as waste. So he sees Death Star as a better project. And while doing so, as Tarkin arrives on the planet, I have noticed since the episode's aired, people have noticed that there are two Venator-class Republic cruisers alongside Tarkin's Imperial Star Destroyer. So canonically, this would be the chronological first appearance of an Imperial Star Destroyer, which is pretty cool, if you ask me. I am a little surprised we never got stormtroopers in this series, but I'm sure that's going to be for another time. So we get the happy ending for the Bad Batch. We get Tarkin has set in place for everything he does in Rogue One and New Hope. And the Empire, we know, as is, Necromancer is now completely stalled for essentially decades to come. These are not the final shots of the episode, though. We do get a glimpse into a future that's an unspecified time exactly. There are predictions. People online have predicted when it is. It's just not confirmed, though. But we do get these shots of a grown-up Omega approaching a sort of older hunter in this cave. Batcher is older too, but still around. And Omega is basically, she wants to use her skills as a pilot to go fight for the rebellion. And a hunter begrudgingly just lets her. He says his fight's done. And I think that's symbolic for him, Wrecker and Crosser having their happy ending, finally choosing to not have to fight because they don't have to anymore. Wrecker and Crosser are not seen in this scene, but they were mentioned, so they are still around and on Pabu still. He lets Omega go, and he goes, or she goes, to fight for the rebellion. So we don't know if this is a little bit before episode 4. We don't know if this is leading up to the fight of the second Death Star. It's just unspecified. So I'm sure they'll sort of pinpoint this later on in some other project, but just for now, it's just unspecified. That's just what it is. But Omega definitely has a door open for her to be a character in some future project. There's an endless possibility for projects she could show up in. Anything where the rebellion are characters, she could definitely have an appearance, which I think would be cool to see. She could mention Hunter. She would be familiar with Captain Rex if he shows up again too. There's just all sort of opportunities with this now. So all in all, it was a great finale. There's a lot of action, a lot of intensity, a lot of emotional moments, and overall, to see the clones get a happy ending. We didn't get that with Clone Wars. We didn't get that really in any other project but this one. This is the only project where they get to choose what they want to be and what they want to do. And Pabu is essentially their retirement, at least for the handful of characters that we had in this series. So I love the finale, guys. A lot of people are saying, or I should say some people are saying it was rushed. Some people are saying that they just wanted to have a quick ending. I think that they just held out for everything to be more intense and more emotional for the ending. So I think this was a great finale. I loved it. And I don't know if Dave Filoni's going to get another TV show with Clone Troopers, with Rex and his rebellion of clones. I don't know. I don't know what's next. But I do know whatever he works on next, I will be excited seeing what he's been able to do with these characters in this series. So thank you guys for watching. If you haven't watched The Bad Batch yet, and you're just sort of using this video to check out what the series was about, please check it out. It's really interesting. Season 1 and 2 aren't the greatest. Season 3 was phenomenal. It is one of my favorite Star Wars TV seasons. And once you see it, you'll understand that it deserves that spot in my ranking. Hopefully it ranks that way with some of you guys as well. So thanks again. I can't wait to see what's next for Star Wars now.